The hammer slipped from my hand the moment I heard the knock, three sharp bangs that didn't sound friendly. Outside, their black SUV idled in my driveway. The HOA had sent their security team, but I hadn't done anything wrong. Unless fixing my grandfather's old cabin counted as a crime. I wiped the sweat off my brow and peered through the dusty window. Two men stood outside, black shirts, mirrored sunglasses, that smug posture that screamed authority without legitimacy. I'd seen that look before, years ago, overseas, when men thought their uniform made them untouchable. But this was different. This was supposed to be home. I opened the door halfway. "Afternoon," I said, my voice calm. "Can I help you?" The taller one smirked. "You can start by showing us your renovation permits. You're in violation of HOA Building Code Section 5-2. I almost laughed. "Section what?" He pointed toward the cabin, the porch I had spent 3 days sanding. The new shutters I'd installed to match the ones my grandfather had before termites destroyed them. "Unapproved modifications," he said. "The board didn't authorize these changes." My jaw tightened. "Sir, this is private property. I bought this land outright. There's no HOA here." He exchanged a glance with his partner, that kind of silent smirk that said, "We've got a problem, child. The Whispering Pines HOA has jurisdiction over all properties within this zone. That includes your parcel." Whispering Pines. That name meant nothing to me when I signed the deed. It was just ink on paper. But apparently, that ink carried invisible chains. I tried reasoning. "Look, I'm just restoring my grandfather's place. He built this cabin with his own hands back in the 60s. It's been falling apart for years. I'm not changing the style, just bringing it back to life." "Doesn't matter," the taller man said. "You'll need to stop all work immediately until you appear before the board. Failure to comply could result in fines." "Or removal?" "Removal?" I repeated. "From my own property?" He shrugged. "Those are the rules." They left their notice pinned to my door like some kind of scarlet letter, then walked off, still smirking. I watched the SUV roll down the dirt path, dust curling in its wake. I picked up my hammer again, but my hand shook. Not from fear. From anger. You'd think after 2 decades in the military, I'd know how to keep calm under pressure. But this was a different kind of battlefield. One where the enemy wore smiles instead of uniforms, and used bylaws instead of bullets. I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the pines. The smell of sawdust and paint lingered in the air, my kind of therapy. After losing my wife 3 years ago, this cabin was supposed to be my reset button. A place to heal, rebuild, breathe. But even here, peace came with paperwork and people who thought they could control you. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt heavier than usual. I wasn't scared of them showing up again. I was scared of what I might do if they did. Morning came, and with it, a stubborn kind of resolve. I poured coffee, stepped outside, and looked at that cabin. The sun hit the wood just right, bringing out the grain in the planks I'd sanded. It looked alive again. Grandpa would have been proud. I decided then I wasn't stopping. No committee, no board, no clipboard-wielding stranger was going to take this from me. The next week I worked in silence. Replaced a section of the roof, painted the porch rails, even cleared the brush near the creek. Every hammer strike was an act of defiance. Every nail a reminder that I wasn't done fighting. Then came the letter. Slipped under my door one afternoon. No envelope, no return address, just bold black ink across cheap paper. Cease construction immediately, or face legal and physical consequences. Physical. That word sent a chill down my spine. I'd faced threats before, real ones. But there was something sickening about this. About being targeted not by strangers across an ocean, but by neighbors across a fence. I called the number on the first notice. Got redirected 3 times before someone finally answered. Whispering Pines HOA, this is Brenda. "Brenda?" I said evenly. "This is Tom Reynolds. I think there's been some mistake." "No mistake, Mr. Reynolds," she cut in. "Your renovations violate Aesthetic Compliance Code Section 12. I almost chuckled. Aesthetic compliance? What does that even mean? It means your property must maintain a consistent appearance with the community standard. The board will review your violations this Friday at 9 a.m. Attendance is mandatory. Mandatory. So that's how they played at bureaucratic intimidation, dressed as community order. Friday came. I walked into the meeting hall, a repurposed recreation center, filled with folding chairs in the faint smell of coffee and fake authority. At the center of it all sat her, the HOA president. Mid-50s, perfect hair, blazer too expensive for a volunteer position. Her nameplate read Marcia Klein. She smiled when she saw me, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Reynolds," she said sweetly, "we've received several complaints regarding your construction. You're aware this community has standards, correct?" I nodded. Standards, sure. But I didn't realize they extended to private property restoration. Marcia leaned forward. "Your cabin is visible from the main road. Its appearance affects the community's image. That gives us jurisdiction. You're telling me fixing my grandfather's porch makes you look bad?" Her smile faltered. "It's not personal. It's policy." Policy. The same word I'd heard when higher-ups made bad decisions and called it procedure. Yes. She handed me a folder. Inside were photos of my porch, my tools, even me mid-work. Someone had been watching. "You'll stop all activity immediately," she said, "or we'll have to pursue enforcement measures." I stared at her, then at the board behind her, 5 people who didn't even know my name. Deciding the fate of a home that meant everything to me, I stood. "You know what's funny? I fought for this country so people like you could have freedom. Yet here you are trying to take mine because you don't like the color of my porch." Her expression turned cold. "That's enough, Mr. Reynolds." "No," I said quietly. "It's not." I left the folder on her desk and walked out, my pulse steady, my mind already planning. They wanted a fight? They just picked the wrong veteran over the next few days. I started documenting everything, every threat, every notice, every strange car that slowed past my property at night. I installed cameras, set up motion lights, and even contacted a lawyer friend from my unit. Then, late one night, I caught them. 2 men in dark jackets parked by my gate, snapping photos of the cabin. When I stepped outside, flashlight in hand, they bolted. That's when I knew it wasn't about community standards anymore. It was personal. I went back inside, sat at the table, and opened Grandpa's old cigar box. Inside were letters, property deeds, even a faded photo of him building the cabin. But what caught my eye was a small envelope marked for the next generation. Inside a handwritten note. "Tommy, this land isn't just wood and dirt. It's legacy. And legacy isn't something you give up, it's something you protect." It hit me harder than any threat. I made a promise that night. I wasn't just fighting for a cabin. I was fighting for the right to exist without fear in my own home. So when they came again, 3 SUVs this time, lights flashing, men shouting, or I didn't flinch, I stepped onto that porch, calm as ever. "Mr. Reynolds." One of them barked. "You're in violation of direct board orders." I smiled faintly. "You boys ever heard of trespassing?" They didn't answer. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and held it up. "You're on camera. I suggest you leave before you violate another law." The tallest one hesitated. "You don't want to make this worse." I took a step forward. "Trust me soon. You don't want to find out what worse looks like." They exchanged looks, then backed off, muttering something about contacting legal. I watched them drive away again. Same dust trail curling through the trees, but this time it didn't settle. It lingered like a storm building on the horizon, and I knew the next strike wouldn't be a knock on the door. It'd be something far more calculated, because people like Marcia don't lose gracefully. I looked up at the cabin, the porch light flickering, and whispered to myself, "You started this war, Marcia, but I'm the one who's going to end it," they thought. They could scare a veteran into silence. But what came next exposed the HOA's darkest secret and turned this quiet neighborhood into a battleground for truth. Stay with me till the end, because you won't believe how far they went to break me and how I turned it all back on them. The following morning, The woods were quiet to quiet. The birds that usually sang near the porch were gone, replaced by the hum of a distant engine. I knew they'd be back. Bullies don't give up after one pushback. They regroup by noon. An envelope arrived. No return address, just my name written in those same block letters. Inside was a single line: "You can't win. Sell and leave." I stared at it, jaw tightening. The same tactic I'd seen in war zones: break your opponent's spirit before you ever fire a shot. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. That afternoon, I called my old friend, Marshall Davis, a former Army investigator turned private security consultant. "Marshall," I said, "I've got a situation. Feels like an ambush wearing a neighborhood watch badge." He chuckled. "You always did attract trouble, Tommy. I'll swing by tomorrow." When he showed up, it felt like backup had arrived. He took one look at the cabin, the cameras I'd installed, the letters I'd kept, and nodded slowly. "This isn't random," he said. "Someone's got a personal reason for wanting you gone." He was right. Marcia Klein wasn't just enforcing rules, she was enforcing control. Marshall dug into public records, property maps, and HOA filings. What he found made my blood run cold. 3 months before I bought the cabin, the HOA had quietly voted to rezone the surrounding area for community expansion, including my land. My cabin sat right in the middle of their planned luxury resort project. They didn't want me gone because of my porch. They wanted the land, and they were willing to do anything to get it. We gathered everything: letters, recordings, the footage from the night they trespassed. Then Marshall suggested we bait them. "Let them think you're backing down," he said. "They'll get sloppy." So I stopped working on the cabin. For 2 days, I didn't even step outside. The lights stayed off, the tools untouched. And just like we predicted, they showed up again late at night, and they thought I was asleep. 2 men crept around the back, flashlights flickering across the shed. One carried a gas can. That's when Marshall stepped out from the shadows, camera rolling. "Evening, gentlemen," he said. "Care to explain why you're planning arson on private property?" The men froze. One dropped the can. The other bolted. But Marshall's truck blocked the driveway. By morning, we had everything: faces, plates, and even texts from one of the men's phones, linking the order back to Marcia herself. When the sheriff arrived, I could tell he didn't want to be there. "Mr. Reynolds," he said carefully, "the HOA president claims you're harassing her members." I handed him the flash drive. "You might want to look at this before you finish that sentence." He did. And the look on his face said it all. Within hours, Marcia was facing charges for trespassing, harassment, and attempted property damage. The local news picked up the story: retired veteran targeted by HOA over a historic cabin. Just like that, the whispering pines went silent. Neighbors who had avoided me suddenly wanted to talk. Some confessed they'd been bullied by Marcia, too fine for things like improper mailbox height or non-conforming lawn color. She'd built her own little empire on fear. Now it was crumbling. But here's the thing about revenge: it never feels like you think it will. When I watched the deputies escort her out of that meeting hall in handcuffs, I didn't feel triumph. I felt tired, like the fight had drained something deeper than anger. Marshall clapped my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Tommy," maybe I said. "But look at all this. I bought this place for peace, and somehow I ended up at war again." He nodded slowly. "Peace isn't the absence of war. It's the strength to stand your ground when someone tries to take it from you." Weeks passed. The charges stuck. The HOA board dissolved after members resigned in disgrace. A new committee formed: real neighbors this time. Folks who just wanted a community, not a kingdom. I rebuilt the cabin's front porch, this time adding a wooden plaque above the steps for Grandpa. For freedom, each day felt lighter. I'd sit outside with coffee, listening to the wind through the trees. That same old sound Grandpa used to call the mountain's heartbeat. Then one afternoon, a young couple stopped by. They were looking at the empty lots nearby. "We heard what you did," the husband said. "You stood up to them." I smiled. Just stood my ground. His wife nodded. People like you make the rest of us feel safe moving here. That stuck with me long after they drove away, because maybe that's what legacy really is, not what you build, but what you protect so others can stand tall too. Months later, I received a letter in the mail. This one was different. Official envelope stamped with the state seal. Inside, a notice that my property was now designated a historical preservation site protected from any future HOA or zoning claim. For the first time in years, I felt like the universe was saying, "You can rest now." I stood on the porch at sunset, the sky burning gold through the treetops, and whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." The cabin creaked softly, like it agreed. And though I didn't seek revenge, justice had its own way of finding me. Asterisk, they tried to take everything from me, my peace, my home, my legacy. But sometimes, the quietest stand can shake the loudest tyrant. If you've ever been bullied, cornered, or told you don't belong, this story is for you. Don't let anyone rewrite what's yours. Watch till the very end, because what happened next turned my victory into something far bigger than revenge. This is HOA Tapes, where justice doesn't always shout, it echoes.